Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and today I would like to discuss the backgrounds of the conflict in Mali and how France has exploited its former or current colonies that are now disposing French colonial power out of West Africa. The most famous case is perhaps the situation in Niger, but Gabon and Burkina Faso and Mali have also been on the news as of late when it comes to this issue. So I thought we start with the Islamist insurgency that happened in Mali to begin with. So let's go. To understand the background of the war in Mali, we have to go back to the Algerian civil war in the 1990s. The Algerian government and various different Islamist groups were at each other's throats after the Islamists won the election against the FLN government. Instead of recognizing the Islamist victory, the military stepped in and grabbed power. Islamists launched attacks against police officers and others connected to the security apparatus in 1992 and 1993. In 1993, the war escalated and the Islamists were targeting civilians, intellectuals, and journalists in particular. They deemed them as a threat to their agenda. Various different Islamist groups were fighting against the Algerian government. Some were more moderate, while others were extremist in their nature, such as the GIA. The GIA, most of its members had fought against the Soviets in Afghanistan, considered all Algerians to be apostates in 1995. They carried out indiscriminate attacks against civilians. The turning point in the Algerian Civil War was after the 1997 massacre. The Islamic Salvation Front negotiated with the FLN government along with its armed wing AIS and ended its armed insurgency. Many jihadists, in particular the group, the GSPC, fled to northern Mali and married with the local women and established themselves there. Mukhtar Bel-Mukhtar was the important link between the GSCP and Al Qaeda, and in 2006, the GSPC became part of AQIM, that is to say, the Al Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. Mukhtar and his fellow jihadists intermarried with local women in northern Mali. And in the 2000s, Bel Mukhtar and the Akim were involved in setting up smuggling routes for tobacco, guns, narcotics, and human trafficking. In 2003, the first hostages were taken in Mali by the Akim when they kidnapped 32 tourists. During the government of President Amadou Touré, the problem of Salafi jihadist groups were ignored in Mali. Part of the reason why the central government in Bamako ignored the problem of jihadism was because they thought their areas were safe from the chaos. Another factor to why the Islamists were getting more ground in Mali was because of the Pakistani Tabligh movement, who had been, operating in Mali, and they were capitalizing on people's distrust of the government, the fact that government officials and certain members of the military were corrupt, they were stealing public funds, and they did this without impunity. So the Islamists were seen as the moral symbol of justice, if I can put it like that. That's why they also gained some popularity among the population in Mali. I wanted to emphasize that as well before I move on to the Libyan conflict, which also contributed to the situation that we see today. The imperialist war on Libya contributed to the chaos that we see in Mali and the rest of the Sahel region. In 2011, Western powers intervened in Libya, and by October 2011, the government of Libya, led by then Muammar Gaddafi, was overthrown and he was lynched by a mob in the desert. Many Tuaregs fought in the army of the former Libyan government. After the Libyan government collapsed, many Tuaregs left Libya with their arms back to northern Mali. Tuaregs have waged wars and uprisings against the central government in Mali for years. Iyad Ghali was considered a hero of the Tuareg cause in the 90s. After the negotiations of the 2003 hostage crisis in Mali, he became radicalized by the Tabli movement. He would eventually join the Akim. He is the most wanted jihadist in Mali today. The return of the Tuaregs reignited the Tuareg cause. They formed the MNLA and fought for an independent state called Azawad. Iyad Ghali created a separate movement, Ansar al-Din. Their goal was to establish Sharia law in Mali. MNLA and Ansar al-Din united against the Malian government despite their ideological differences. The 17th of July 2012, the MNLA launched an offensive and captured Manaka. They proceed to take large parts of northern Mali. The Malian army overthrows Amadou Toumani Touré's government in 22nd of March 2012. The jihadists started to control the major cities in the north. Under Islamist rule, harsh implementations of Sharia law was very common. That is, for example, they used corporal punishments. The French tried to build up the Malian army at first and train them to deal with the jihadist problem in the north. Ghali planned to take the city of Sévaré, which would open the door to the capital city, Bamako. President Traoré requested French military intervention. When the French troops entered Mali the 13th of January 2013. The lack of central government in the north of Mali, combined with environmental issues, also caused clashes between the sedentary Dogon people and the nomadic Fulanis. The Islamists used this opportunity to recruit Fulanis. Amadou Koufa Massina Katiba joined Iyad Ghali against the government in 2017. The lack of economic development and corruption fuels the conflict and migration. In 2020, protests started with the demand to impeach Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. President IBK announces his resignation on national TV, as well as the dissolution of the parliament and government after a military coup. The new military junta in Mali requested the end of French military presence in the country and turned to the Russian paramilitary group, the Wagner Group, for military assistance to fight terrorism. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch my videos, and if you like what you see, please hit the like button and subscribe. In the next video or episode, I thought we could talk about how France is exploiting these countries in the Sahel and West Africa, and how they keep them destabilized and in poverty. So catch me in the next one, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you soon.